Being shy and awkward and soft spoken as a man is the ultimate curse. I'm going to tell you about some of my own personal experiences with being shy and soft spoken, where either I missed out on an opportunity or I could just tell I was making everybody around me feel awkward just because I was being so awkward. But when you are soft spoken and you have social anxiety, everybody can tell there's something off about you. Everybody views you as weak. You're viewed as defective. Because that's the thing. Society dictates that men are supposed to be aggressive and decisive. So if you're not that, and if you're like me and you're the opposite of that, people see you as not being masculine. You don't fit the mold of what people think a man is supposed to be. And that's really bad for you socially. It's a curse on your social life. And really, it's just a curse overall. It's a curse on your life in general, including on your professional life, because every metric of success in a man's life is tied to how dominant you are. Because as a man, the expectation is that you take initiative to get what you want, whether that be trying to get a raise or trying to get with a woman, or even just being the one that decides what settings you and your boys play Smash Brothers on. If you're shy, or not even necessarily shy, but if you're just more introverted and you're a chill, easygoing guy that doesn't necessarily have strong opinions about every little thing, even then, people will think you're weak. And please do not let people gaslight you on this. Women love to get on social media and talk about how they just love guys that are in touch with their feminine side. They love guys that talk about their emotions and guys that respect their boundaries. And they love a guy that can just relax and chill. None of that is true. Okay? It's all bullshit. And it's easy to see. You can just listen to what women say and then look at the guys they actually end up with, and it's easy to see the mismatch. If these women out here really like these soft boys that are in touch with their feminine side or whatever, then why do women always go for the most aggressive guys? Why is it that every time I see a woman with a man, I mean, obviously there's a lot of oofy doofies out there, the classic beta bucks relationships where the woman is settling because Chad doesn't want her. But every time I see a happy couple, okay, a couple where the woman is actually attractive and she seems to be happy in her relationship, happy with the guy she's with, every time I see a couple like that, the guy always falls into one of two categories. He's either a brute or he's a salesman. That's the two archetypes of man that have the most success with women as far as personality goes. The brute and the scumbag salesman. Sure, if a guy looks like Francisco Lachowski or someone like that, then yeah, he can be totally meek and humble and soft-spoken and just be a go-with-the-flow kind of guy, and he'll still clean up. But for an average guy, or especially for a guy that's just barely above the minimum looks threshold, so he's just barely attractive enough to get women, if he's not aggressive, either physically or socially, or preferably both, if he's not aggressive, then basically he's going to be destined to be a loser. It is a little bit of a chicken or the egg situation, though. I don't think there's anything you can do to change whether or not you're naturally outgoing and decisive in everything. I'm sure there is a genetic component in that some people are going to be more genetically inclined to be one way or the other. But there's also just the fact that if people have been treating you well your whole life and everybody always wants to please you just because you have the halo effect, so you always just naturally get your way, because everyone wants to leech off your Chad aura, if that's what your early life experience is like, then you're naturally going to grow up being extremely confident and you'll naturally come to see yourself as a leader. because everyone already looks up to you anyways. So a lot of times, even a man's level of outgoingness and aggressiveness, his masculinity, in other words, it all traces back to looks. Like, I remember as a little kid back in like the second grade, there was this one kid in my class that was a natural leader. Every day at recess, everyone would just be going around aimlessly for the first few minutes. People would be off in their own little friend groups, or some kids would be playing by themselves, usually, like me. But this one kid would always just start yelling out, "Freeze tag! Everybody huddle! We're playing freeze tag!" And then everybody would immediately run over to this kid, and he would lead us in eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or whatever other little game we would use to determine who's it. And that kid was just the de facto leader of the class. He was like the silverback of the second grade. I even remember on days that he was absent, nobody would play freeze tag. None of us would play a game together as a whole class if that kid was not there to rally everybody together. Because none of the other kids were dominant and aggressive like that. But when I look back on those times, it's obvious why that kid just automatically assumed the role of alpha male in the class hierarchy. Because I remember this kid looked exactly like Jonathan Taylor Thomas. For those of you that are a little bit younger listening to this, Jonathan Taylor Thomas was a famous child actor back in the 90s. He was on Home Improvement. He was in a few movies. But pretty much every girl back in the 90s had a crush on JTT. And I remember every year when we would get a new teacher or anytime we had a substitute, they would always comment on how this kid looks like Jonathan Taylor Thomas. And I remember some cheerleaders from the high school. This was when we were a little bit older, maybe like fifth grade or something like that. So, I actually liked girls by then. So this made me extremely jealous. But these older girls, these high school girls, so my school had every grade in the same building, kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. So I don't remember what it was for, but for some reason, a bunch of the high school cheerleaders, they came to our class to do a little cheer routine. And I just remember all these girls just fawning over this kid. Like, "Oh my God, he looks just like Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Oh my God, he's so cute." And, that's just how it was for this kid. And I'm sure he still gets treated like that today, unless he ended up being short or something. I guess that's a possibility. But the point I'm making with this story was this kid just naturally outgoing and dominant? Or was he like that because people always treated him like he's a celebrity just because he was a good-looking kid? I think it's gotta be at least a little bit because of how people treated him. He was expected to be the leader, so he could just naturally, easily assume that role. Like, of course, in his mind, it's just natural to him that he should be the one to lead the class in freeze tag because everybody always treated him like he's in charge. But me and most of us, I didn't have the Jonathan Taylor Thomas experience growing up. I don't think I was an ugly kid, but I was just average. I had a good couple years when I was a teenager where I actually was kind of good looking, but my personality was already pretty set by that point. I was already extremely high inhibition by then. So, in other words, I was already very shy. So, growing up, I never got that star treatment. People never really seemed interested in anything I had to say. People didn't show me a lot of attention. I was just there. I was just existing. Even in my own house, with my own parents. I wouldn't say they were neglectful really, but they always seemed busy. They wouldn't want to play with me or answer my questions when I was a kid a lot of the time. So I would just play by myself a lot. I got into video games really early on. I remember spending hours playing Super Mario World, Street Fighter II, Aladdin on the SNES. just to name a few. Then I got into JRPGs way too early. That's a true cell indicator, by the way. If you played all the way through Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals when you were 7 years old, then you just never stood a chance. If you were obsessed with Earthbound when you were like 8 years old, then you are bound to never get pussy. Because, look, I get that it's fun. There's a reason I liked RPGs so much, but I didn't realize that was setting me up with these pointless neurodivergent interests that nobody other than me in real life is going to think is interesting. So it's like, as a little kid, I really liked these RPGs, but just imagine me as a second grader trying to talk to kids in my class about the new capsule monster I found in Lufia 2, or just trying to talk about how I successfully recruited all 108 Stars of Destiny in Suikoden 2. Like, as a kid, I had no concept of the fact that other people have different interests. And most people actually have very similar interests to each other, mainstream movies, football, things like that, or even popular video games. But I didn't realize everyone would think I was a loser if I talked about JRPGs, because those aren't the right video games. It's not the right topic to talk about with normies. So I had the early life experience of getting rejected and talked down to. So I think that's at least part of the reason I ended up being so cripplingly shy as an adult. And it really sucks being an adult man when you're really shy. You never practice your social skills. So even on the rare occasion where maybe you do open up to someone, you're just super awkward because you don't know how to talk to people. So you're just shy and awkward and soft-spoken. It's like, even as a full-grown man, I still feel like people treat me like I'm a kid sometimes. Like, anytime I have an appointment for anything, like a doctor's appointment or whatever, I always feel like everybody's treating me like I'm a little kid. Like the receptionist, the doctor, or whoever, just nobody sees me as an actual adult. And it probably is because they pick up on that meek, docile energy that I give off. So they're compensating in a way to treat me like that. Because I'm so shy, I present myself like a shy child. So naturally, people reflect that energy and they treat me like I'm a child. So it is my own fault in a way, but if you have social anxiety like I do, then you would know it's not as easy as just faking it till you make it. You can maybe fake being extroverted a little bit here and there in one-off moments. But if you're like me, your natural awkwardness is going to show itself eventually. Even if it's just little things like that half a second of hesitation before you speak, or the way you can't hold eye contact, the way your voice quivers. People pick up on these subtle things. It's like how a shark smells blood in the water. Normies just have a sixth sense for smelling your anxiety, even if you think you're doing a pretty good job of masking it. I remember back when I worked a summer job at a factory, I was working in the maintenance department, and I was in a temp position, so everyone knew I didn't really know what I was doing. But the way the job worked, there was one guy that was assigned to be my mentor, essentially. So usually I would just follow him around and he would show me how to do things like different kinds of welding or how to use different machines, like a lathe or a Bridgeport. And he was a nice guy. He was already past retirement age. I think he was like 66, 67. But he just needed the money, I guess, because he actually worked overtime every week, voluntarily. He didn't have to, he chose to. But anyways, he was nice. But after maybe a week or two, I could tell he was just so frustrated with me and my inability to manage any basic social interaction. Because it would be things like, So one time he told me to go to his toolbox and get a certain tool. I forget what it was basically, but I didn't know what the tool was. I didn't know what it looked like. But because I'm so shy and avoidant of social interactions, instead of asking him what it was, I just kind of paused and I was standing there trying to think of, would I be able to figure out what this is just based off the name? Or should I ask? Because this is the thing about high inhibition. Part of why it makes you so awkward is because you end up stun locked, just standing there like a moron all the time because your brain is just automatically, it just automatically goes into over analysis mode. And you're just standing there going through every possible option of thing that could happen or the thing you could say. You're going over all these options in your head when really, like in this situation, I should have just immediately asked, you know, what's a mag drill or whatever. It wasn't a mag drill. That's a tool. I know what that is, but I can't remember what the tool was. So for the remainder of this story, I'll just say mag drill. But yeah, he asked me to go get this tool and I was just standing there trying to think of what to say or what to do, whatever. I was stun locked. And then he was like, "You do know what a mag drill is, don't you?" Then, obviously at that point, I should have just said, "No, I don't know what it is. Please explain it." But instead, I just said, yeah, I do. Sorry. And then I started walking over toward the tool area, which was on the whole complete other side of this big warehouse, by the way. But in the moment, doing that, just saying yeah and walking away, that felt like the path of least resistance in the moment because he sounded like he expected that I did know what the tool was. And I thought he might be mad if I don't know what it is, or he'll think I'm stupid or whatever. So I know this sounds ridiculous if you are a normal person, but I'm telling you, this is what it's like when you've got really bad social anxiety. It just makes you very susceptible to social pressure like that, and it makes you do really stupid things. I'm not trying to say I have no agency in this, by the way. I know technically I could have made a better decision. Technically, I can make better decisions than what I do. So it is my own fault, but I'm just saying it's very hard. Okay? That's all I'm trying to say. So anyway, I end up walking all the way over to the toolbox and I was looking around for a while and I just couldn't figure out, what the tool is. So there was another maintenance guy over there in that general area. He was at his station. So I figured, well, I guess I have to ask him for help because I can't go all the way back to the other guy empty handed. I'll look retarded if I do that. So already you can see how I just keep making the situation worse for myself. And that is a pattern of behavior in my life. But yeah, so I was trying to work up the courage to approach this other guy and ask him, hey, what is a mag drill? What does this tool look like? So eventually I psyched myself up enough and I go over to this guy and I was like, "Hey, excuse me." But I guess he didn't hear me because I said it kind of quiet. I mean, it was really loud in there with all the manufacturing equipment and everything. And it's an environment where all the workers have to wear earplugs. So that's how loud it is in there. But the guy was kind of hunched over his workbench writing something. So I tapped him on his shoulder to get his attention. And I guess he just assumed I was trying to get his attention to tell him to move out of the way because he didn't even say anything. He just kind of scooted over so I could squeeze past. It's kind of hard to explain, but the area where all the maintenance workers' toolboxes and everything was at, it was kind of like a narrow little path with workbenches and toolboxes on the sides. So if someone was actually at one of the workbenches, they would be kind of standing in the path unless they were really making sure they weren't. So yeah, when I tapped the guy on the shoulder to get his attention, he just kind of slid out of the way. because I guess that's what he thought I wanted. So, it had already took all my courage just to psych myself up enough to even get the courage to try asking this guy about the tool. So when I saw that he misunderstood why I was getting his attention, and his expectation was just that I'm trying to walk past him, when I saw that, I just didn't have it in me. I just didn't have the courage, or, I don't even know if it's about courage at that point. It's just like, I automatically just go with what the other person's suggesting because I don't want to upset anybody. And that's really just how I am in social situations. Whatever I think the other person expects or what they want, like that's what I try to do. And it's very hard for me to resist that natural inclination. So when this guy scooted out of the way, I walked past him. So at that point, I was in kind of a double dilemma because now not only was I no closer to figuring out what the hell a mag drill is, I was also kind of blocked from getting back to the toolbox where I was supposed to be looking for it. So at that point, I decided to just go to the locker room and get my phone out of my locker and just look it up, find a picture on the internet, and then try to find it that way, because I figured at least then I could figure it out. And then I would just tell the guy that the reason it took so long is because I had to go to the bathroom or something. So I actually would have had to walk past the guy I was supposed to be bringing the tool to in order to get to the locker room. So I ended up just going outside and walking around the entire building just so the guy wouldn't see me. So I did that, and then I walked back into the building through a different door. I walk into the locker room, and of course, the guy is right there. Like, he was walking out as I was going in, and he was just like, "Did you get the mag drill?" So I said, "No, I couldn't find it." And then he started to get all worked up, and he's like, "What do you mean you couldn't find it? You can't miss it. It's right there." And I was just like, I don't know. So then we both started walking back over to the tool area, and the whole time he's just like, "These dingbats better not be playing with my tools again, blah, blah, blah." He was getting heated about it because I guess he believed, that I told him I couldn't find it. So he thinks his tool is missing, I guess. And then we get over there and he just walks right up and picks up this thing that was just sitting there in plain sight. And he's like, "You didn't see this? Did you try opening your eyes?" And I was just like, "Sorry, I didn't see it." And there was some other moments like that too, where my high inhibition just led me to making things way harder than they needed to be. And the end result, I do these things because I'm trying to avoid conflict, but the end result is always a worse conflict than it would have been if, from the start, I had just been like, "No, I don't know what a mag drill is. Can you please explain it?" Even if at that point the guy thought that I'm retarded for not knowing about this tool, which he probably wouldn't have, but that's the kind of thought I have in my head. But I just made everything worse by acting the way that I did, by being avoidant. But that's what I'm saying. It's very hard for me when you have the anxiety like I do. It's very hard. It's very difficult. And I mean, I can say that all I want. If you don't know, then you don't know. If you haven't experienced it, you're not going to understand. You're just not going to be able to relate if you don't have that experience. So, yeah, it kind of sucks, but I know some of you listening to this, you do know what it's like. I know I'm not the only one, so shout out to y'all. But yeah, that's just an example of the way I am. I'm so shy and timid and soft-spoken. It always gets me into these awkward situations. I don't even know what people are thinking when I act like that, but I know it's not good. I'm guessing people just think I'm stupid, but it's obviously a big handicap when it comes to actually getting your job done. And I'm sure you can imagine, it makes it pretty much impossible to find a girlfriend because how am I supposed to talk to a woman long enough to get to know each other when I'm too much of a coward to even ask a guy what a mags drill looks like? And I think back to the Indian girl. I did actually go up to her and start a conversation the first time we talked. But I think the only reason I was able to do that is because Jamal was expecting me to go talk to her. So it was like social pressure from both directions. And I guess me actually talking to her in that situation, that was the path of least resistance in that moment. Because like I say, Jamal was there waiting for me to go talk to her because he was kind of like, pushing me to do that. So that was kind of a unique situation there, I suppose. But yeah, it's really tough as a man when you are timid and soft-spoken. You just don't fit the archetype of a man that women have in their mind when they are picturing an attractive man. Despite what a lot of people might say, women are attracted to masculine men. They like men that take charge, men that don't show any hesitation. They want to feel like they don't have to be making any decisions. Their man is just going to take care of them and make all the hard decisions and everything. But I could never be that guy. I'm so far removed from that. There's just no way. I am the opposite of masculine as far as being outgoing and decisive. I think I have other traits that are masculine, but I don't have that outward aggression and go-get-itedness that people can just automatically pick up on. So I'll always be starting out behind when it comes to attracting women. Because I do think most people can pick up on how shy and awkward you are, usually just by looking at you, but they definitely pick up on it immediately as soon as you talk to someone. Even if it's just a very quick thing, like just walking past a coworker and they say good morning, it's really easy to pick up on how shy or outgoing someone is just from a very brief interaction. It's just body language and tone and eye contact. Like there's so many subtle signs that we pick up on. So you really can't just fake it till you make it. Even the most basic interactions, like I said, everything is a subtle power game. So if you are not aggressive, people can notice immediately in any context. People can see the way you naturally are. So as a shy, awkward man, it's already over for me before it ever even begins. Even if I worked up the courage to approach a woman, by the time I'm within talking distance, she probably already can sense that something's off about me. I'm not masculine enough or whatever. I come off as creepy. I hesitate a little bit perhaps. Or maybe, as soon as I open my mouth and she can hear my soft, quivering voice, not even being able to control my volume properly, just stuttering or hesitating before everything I say, it's just a curse. It's just a curse. Because again, yes, technically, I guess I could overcome all this, maybe in a one-off interaction, but that's never going to be enough. The real me will always be revealed eventually. I don't think any amount of therapy is going to be able to fix whatever it is I have that makes me act like a timid child everywhere I go. It's just a curse that I have to live with. I would honestly, if I could choose to be like 2 points less attractive physically in exchange for being 2 points less inhibited, I would make that trade in a second. That is an easy decision for me. Because at best as it is, I'm average looking, which already isn't enough to get women. But even if I could attract a woman, I could never actually progress things because of how shy I am. I mean, look at how I froze when I had a chance with that single mother. So I would rather be less socially inhibited in exchange for being uglier because I'm already below most women's minimum looks threshold, anyways. So at this point, I think I'd be better off having more charisma stat just so I could navigate day to day life better. Because being awkward and soft spoken isn't just a problem with attracting women, it's just a big problem in general. It makes every aspect of life a lot more difficult when you are not able to live up to the basic expectations people have of what a man is supposed to be. Like with the story I told about getting the tool for that guy at the factory job, I know there's no way that he could understand what was going through my mind that made me not just go get the tool and bring it back to him. Did he think I was just trying to hide in the locker room? Did he think I forgot what I was supposed to be doing? Did he think I was high or something? I don't know. I don't know what he thought. But the actual explanation would not make sense to someone that doesn't experience social anxiety for themselves to that same extreme level that I do. So I'm sure he either thought I was retarded or maybe he just thought I was trying to get out of working. I don't know. But it doesn't feel very good knowing that people don't like being around me because they feel like it's difficult being around me or it's unpleasant to have to deal with me. But they're right to feel that way. Obviously, I do make it hard for everyone else around me when I pretty much can't even function as a regular human being without some assistance. I know isolating myself only makes it worse, if anything, but the thought of actually working at a regular job and being around people all day, being around women especially, like, it hurts to even think about it. Here's another example I just thought of how retarded my brain is. This was in 8th grade, I think. So, old story, but this is the type of thing I could still see myself doing today. So, I think it is relevant. So, I was in science class in the 8th grade, and the teacher for this class liked to call on random students to answer questions, which, fair enough, that's probably better than just giving a boring lecture while everybody struggles to stay awake. But he asked, he was like, "What are the 4 seasons?" Loser maxing. Name all of the seasons. Okay, so obviously this is a very simple question. You know, the 4 seasons: summer, spring, winter, fall. Obviously, everybody knows the seasons by the time they're in the 8th grade. It's a gimme question, okay? I don't think he was trying to pick on me, like call me, haha, he's so stupid. Here's a easy question for the retard. It was nothing like that, you know. He was just asking an easy question to a student, whatever, you know. But me, being as awkward as I was, and I am still to this day, and the fact that I was not expecting to get called on like that, because I knew this teacher always called on people, but I thought I was safe because I thought he didn't know my name because I was new at that school. But that didn't stop him. He just called me hippie because I had long hair back then. So he was just like, "Hey, hippie, name all the seasons." And he pointed at me. So I remember I said, just list them out. And he was like, "What?" So I was like, "You want me to just list all of them out?" And he started like, I don't know that I'd say he's getting mad, but he was getting frustrated with trying to deal with me. And he said, "Just say the names of the seasons. It's not a trick question. Just say the seasons." So I was like, okay, summer, winter, spring. And I swear to God, I could not, for the life of me, remember fall. I couldn't remember fall, autumn. So I just said summer, winter, spring, and then I just couldn't think of it. And then after a few seconds, the teacher called on someone else. He was like, okay, Tim, help him out. And then the next kid just said all the seasons very quickly, as anybody would, because duh, we were in the 8th grade. I think, everybody knew what the 4 seasons were. But, everybody in my class after that point, I'm guessing that they thought that I did not know all 4 seasons because I couldn't think of all 4 of the fucking seasons. So it's things like that when you're shy and awkward like I am. When you get put on the spot like that, your brain just starts malfunctioning. I don't know why I asked, so should I just list them out? Because, yeah, duh. What the fuck else would someone want you to do when they ask you to name the seasons? And then I literally couldn't even recall all of the seasons in that moment. But that's just how it is sometimes when you just get overloaded with anxiety and you're panicking. You just malfunction like that. And that's really, I think, where a lot of awkwardness comes from. People think it's just because you don't know how to act in social situations, but usually I do know exactly how a normal person would act. I just can't do it because I'm malfunctioning, because I'm panicking with all this anxiety. It's a fucking curse. Consider yourself lucky if you do not have this curse, because it really is one of the worst fates imaginable as a man. If you're able to relate to any of the things I've been saying, or if you found any of this thought-provoking, please consider watching some other videos on my channel. There's more videos on my Patreon too, by the way, including some that you can watch for free without even signing up. So check that out if that sounds interesting to you. But as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.